absolutely adore what Mortal Kombat has become, especially Mortal Kombat 1. Watching everything from the sidelines this entire time, hearing all the new and even returning characters NetherRealm Studios is bringing into this game, while finding new and interesting ways to have other characters be seen, and allow them to have some type of hand in the new modern age of carnage that this series has developed, with the absolutely stacked roster on top of the game bringing in the brand new Cameo System and watching so many people get unbelievably excited. It's heartwarming. I consider myself to be more of a casual fan rather than a long-term fan, mainly because I suck ass at these games. Mortal Kombat was huge in my household growing up, but compared to my siblings, I just got my ass whooped every time, as there was no chance in hell. So because they completely destroyed all my self-esteem and any potential hope of trying to get better at this game from way on, and so I just submitted and accepted my spot as a quote-unquote casual fan from that moment on. Shooters are now my thing, but even as a casual fan over the years, I have paid some fair amount of attention to these games and everything NetherRealm has been doing in terms of trying to reinvent the wheel while staying true to what Mortal Kombat's identity is. Glorious, bloodlust-filled games centered around the most brutal fatalities and cases of physical punishment a human body's ever endured. Ever publicly been appraised too. As a casual fan of the series, after getting my hands on the beta over this last weekend, I'm actually thoroughly impressed with it. First off, the game is downright gorgeous. In a world where we're absolutely obsessed with graphical fidelity and how high of a resolution we can get something to be, the game still managed to blow me away. And I don't normally care about graphics, but it's something that definitely caught my eye, particularly with the flashy attacks and of course the particle effects, mainly everything revolving around Liu Kang. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize he's of course the poster boy of this game, so you bet your ass they're going to be making sure he looks the best, sounds the best, and has the most flashy attacks. But seeing his attacks and his character model with how fluidly he moves across the screen, I was just constantly in amazement with him. The entire roster of characters all look great too, I mean don't get me wrong, but just him always popped out. For the entire game, even the finest details in the hair, skin, and clothing accentuated by the immaculate adornment of blood splattered on it. And the beautiful detail doesn't end on just the character models. Of course, the fatalities and depth of the human anatomy, the characters' reactions to the pain they're enduring, and how responsive everything is, were all amazing. But each stage is also beautifully detailed, and honestly, there was probably much more detail in them that there really needed to be. The beta only had us play in 2 stages, the first one being what appears to be a living room of a mansion with the pool in the background, and the other being what looks to be some type of restaurant out in the Far East. The mansion personally was the stage that I'm really talking about, is the one that really caught my eye, with the color palette, the contrast, and the detail of everything in the scene. It's just downright gorgeous. I just wanted to talk about that briefly because I just don't think Mortal Kombat stages doesn't get enough love and how interactive they can be at times. But enough about the stages, let's talk about the characters and more importantly the new Cameo System. So in the beta we had access to 6 playable characters and 4 cameos. The 6 characters were Sub-Zero, Kenshi, Katana, Liu Kang, Li Mei, and Johnny Cage. The 4 cameos were Frost, Kano, Sonya, and Jax. I don't know if this is them basically teasing the full cameo roster number here. If so, it looks like we're going to be getting 16 characters total, which is actually a pretty significant amount when you say that out loud. Just looking at the screen, it doesn't look like you're going to have a lot, but if you count all these icons here, it accumulates to 16 total, with possibly even more being added via DLC packs, which is actually quite impressive. But while a great system in its own right, I think there's some negatives that come along with the Cameo System. As I was saying before, it's a nice mix-up of 2 things. It's a little bit of a nostalgia factor where they can incorporate some characters from previous games or, the long history of Mortal Kombat as a whole. Maybe they don't feel like a particular character that they're leaving out in the past is significant enough to bring into the roster, so it can have some type of appearance or some type of hand in the Cameo System, and by an extension, they can be used to complement a main character's combos, whether to just complement it or to expand it or just boost it for either practicality or the overall flashy factor. It can also be perfect to incorporate some new characters that may not be fleshed out enough to fit the actual roster, but there might be 1 or 2 moves that might be conceptually a fantastic idea, but the idea as a whole isn't strong enough to warrant an entire character. Maybe that character is very similar to someone that's already on the roster, or there's just not enough space in the main roster. So however you see it, practically, from a gameplay perspective, even just from a fan service perspective, the Cameo System is amazing. However, after seeing the system firsthand, I think it'd be great if they brought back the 1v1 system, where it's just one character versus another character, whether that be in a game mode or it could be some type of restrictions where you're going through your towers and that's just one of the modifiers that comes up, or even bringing back the tag team 2v2 game mode where you can pick 2 primary characters and fight against 2 primary characters of, the computer of another player. As I was saying, considering this is basically a soft reboot of the Mortal Kombat series, I think something like that would be great, because I don't remember that being a thing in MK11 or even MK10 or MKX. And I think bringing back either that mode or having both options of having a 1v1 or a 2v2 game mode would be great, because now you have a roster that's catering to very, very, very long time fans, newcomers to the series, and then you have a marketing campaign that's being pushed so hard that you have people that have never really talked or even experienced or enjoyed Mortal Kombat actually starting to pay attention to it and look interested in it. And I think that this is probably the first year in a long time where they can captivate a much larger audience than ever before. It's not just a nostalgia factor of this game being so old and having its roots in the gaming industry at large and so many people's childhoods, but you're also reaching a new generation of gamers. You know, people that have never experienced the blood, the gore, or even the depth that Mortal Kombat supplies. And for someone like me that never paid that much attention to combos or all these button prompts or whatever, I was always a button masher. This was the first time that I ever actually paused the menu and looked at each character's moves. And this is actually something that I really liked about the beta, because it seemed like whenever you had to initiate a particular combo, you had to be very deliberate with trying to make that combo actually work. Versus before, you had to be, at least from my perspective, you had to be incredibly fast. Now you have to do it in a sequence where it's more in line with what I would consider to be the old school cheat codes that you would have on a console, where you would type it in on, you know, your D-pad or the face buttons, or maybe even both. In other words, in order to achieve some type of combo, you got to be much more deliberate in your button execution rather than just spamming a certain sequence of buttons that you know will achieve some type of combos. And with Mortal Kombat 1 generating this much hype, excitement, overall tension, and seemingly reaching an audience like never before, having this deliberate intention behind your button presses, or even in my case, actually having that curiosity of looking deep into the button combinations to be able to achieve and even actually appreciate this, I think is a massive step. I played Mortal Kombat 9, 10, and 11, but this was the first time where I ever actually went into this, looked at all the combinations, looked at all the things that my character can be able to do. I was actually amazed at how much depth and complexity that a game like this genuinely has. And the fact that it seemed like each character within the beta that we were able to play, nothing was really hidden, so you can basically fully explore each one of these characters within this beta. From the graphical fidelity, the amazing responsiveness of characters, the depth that each character has in every cameo character, the powerful marketing campaign behind it, and how can we forget the detail of the blood, gore, and of course the fatalities. Everything is working perfectly in NetherRealm's favor, especially with the amount of fan service they're on top of with this game. I think it has the possibility to leave its mark on every corner of the gaming industry in many different ways. I'm just saying they should take that nostalgia factor a bit past just the character roster and incorporate the older modes into it as well, while simultaneously saying for a casual fan like myself that never really cared much about looking into the combinations, kind of just enjoying the game on the surface and basking in the brutal presentation that the game always had, I think this one, at least for me, has the potential to really draw people in to that depth that really has always been there, just now they've refined it to a point where they can really suck in pretty much everybody at this point.